Guys, without any further ado, this is Masteron unleashed like you've never heard it before. Guys, we're going to go through all the pros, unbiased, uncensored, absolutely everything you need to know. Then we're going to jump on over into the cons. Again, unbiased, uncensored, absolutely everything you need to know. We're going to drop down on the board into dosage, talk about dosing. We're going to talk about what people have used in the medical industry, medical professionals, what is safe dosing. Then we're going to go on over, that's right guys, and finish up with any extra additional information. Things just plain and simple people either don't know in the first place, or things, guys, people just don't want to talk about. So, without any further ado, this is Masteron Unleashed. I'm Seth Spartan. Let's get started. And guys, make sure you stick around for the cons. There are some pretty serious cons with Masteron. Not just basic cons that we've talked about in other videos, but also some pretty bad cons like joint pain and some of the effects of Masteron on the joints, which are much like Winstrol. So anyways, let's get started. Masteron Unleashed, starting with the pros. Here we go. Masteron, anabolic androgenic rating or ratio of 96 anabolic. That's 96 anabolic to only 32.5 androgenic. So what does this mean? It means on paper, using the latest ratings that we have available. Yes, guys, these are the latest ratings that we have. 96 anabolic, androgenic, only 32.5. So just looking on paper, using the scientific rating system, we see that anabolic, guys, is actually pretty good for Masteron. 96 anabolic it's almost as powerful milligram per milligram as just regular testosterone, which is awesome. That's really good. In terms of androgenic, over here in the androgenic side, we see that Masteron boasts an extremely low 32.5, an extremely low what? Androgenic rating. So this means just looking at this rating system, we see that androgenic sides are what? Very minimal to say the least. And guys, this is why Masteron was used so heavily in women over the last, I'd say 70 years or so, especially before the turn of the century. Other drugs have replaced Masteron. We'll talk about this as far as treating breast cancer and other things. But guys, in females, this super low androgenic rating has made Masteron much used in the past in females. Moving on in the pros, everything you need to know. Masteron is a DHT derivative anabolic androgenic steroid. What does this mean? Guys, we have three main classes of anabolic steroids where everything comes from. We have testosterone derivatives. We have DHT, which is dihydrotestosterone derivatives, and we have 19-nor derivative anabolic steroids. So all the steroids we have today are pretty much derived from either three of these classes, which, interestingly enough, all three, testosterone, DHT, and 19-nor being nandrolone, are all found in the human body. That's another side note, some extra points. But anyways, guys, having said that, DHT derivative steroid is Masteron. And also it has a half-life. Masteron half-life, it has two different half-lives. What? Why? Most known is the half-life of 2.5 days. Why? The root hormone of Masteron is drostanolone, or drustanolone. Drustanolone is found, in other terms, Masteron is a propionate ester, has a propionate ester attached onto drustanolone. This gives it a half-life of right around 2.5 days. And this is the main, not the main, I would say the primary ester that people come across with Masteron. So when you hear Masteron, most of the time they're talking about drustanolone propionate, which has a 2.5 half-life. Masteron can also refer to, a little bit less common, but it can also refer to what? The longer ester being enanthate, drustanolone enanthate. And enanthate, guys, it's the same ester as testosterone. enanthate. It's the same sort of thing, except attached onto a different parent hormone, being Masteron or just standalone. So half-lives are 2.5 days with the propionate and 10 days with enanthate. Moving on in the pros. Stay with us, guys. We're about to get into some deep stuff with Masteron. A lot of stuff people don't talk about. So we're going to do exactly that. Talk about everything. Moving down in the pros. And again, stick with us for the cons. There's a lot of crazy stuff in the cons with Masteron. So moving on. No estrogen conversion. Let me say that again. With Masteron, there is no estrogen conversion. Remember, guys, what class does Masteron fall into? Masteron falls into DHT derivative. So that means theoretically and scientifically, by nature, Masteron cannot convert into estrogen. And guess what we see, guys, in the real world? Plays out perfectly. Masteron, being a DHT derivative, cannot and will not convert into estrogen under any circumstance. With Anadrol, it's the same thing, but Anadrol actually gives estrogenic side effects. Why? Because Anadrol actually has a slight or a small affinity onto estrogen receptor sites. Thereby, Anadrol actually binds estrogen receptor sites. Go watch my video on Anadrol Unleashed. Having said that, let's get back to Masteron. Moving on. So, no estrogen conversion, but also, big note, guys, nobody talks about this. Masteron also acts as an AI. What is an AI? An aromatase inhibitor. Think anastrozole. Same sort of concept. What do I mean by this? So in the case of AI, aromatase inhibitors, what happens? That whatever drug you're taking, depending on what class of AI, but the most common ones, you have the estrogen receptor sites, which estrogen will bind onto, boom. Well, with an AI, the AI basically does what? It binds onto the aromatase enzyme, which is what converts testosterone into estrogen or other aromatizable steroids into estrogen. Well, what's going to happen with Masteron? Masteron's going to come along and basically block that receptor site. So it's basically, guys, acting just like an AI. Now, not only this, guys, but this is what's going to cause a hardening effect, much like Winstrol. You know how Winstrol, gives you this hard shrink-wrapped look. We're going to talk about that in a second. But also, this is going to give you joint pain. Why? Because there are aromatase, aromatase around the joint capsule, which basically, for lack of a better word, flush estrogen or promote estrogen levels inside the joint. So what does this mean? Masteron acts not only as a hardening agent, we're talking, removing sub-Q water, hardening agent on the muscles, but Masteron, guys, is going to do the same thing as Winstrol. It's going to basically block estrogen binding sites in the joints and thereby doing what? Same as Winstrol, guys, you guessed it, Masteron is going to give you dry or creaky joints, painful joints, depending on dosage used. And you really can't, even if you increase testosterone or you let your estrogen go up, you really can't get around this. Why? Because with Winstrol and Masteron, they're both binding to aromatase. They're both acting as aromatase inhibitors, and they're binding or blocking those estrogen receptor sites. Moving on in the pros. Guess we talked about the cons a little bit, but you kind of had to. Moving on in the pros. Masteron Unleashed, very low androgenic. What does this mean? In regards to Masteron, most people have no idea that Masteron has such a high anabolic rating to begin with. We talked about this, 96, based on the latest research and scientific information we have available. But also, it has an extremely low androgenic, 32.5. So what does this mean? It means that if you really wanted to, guys, you could use Masteron as a pretty good or a decent muscle builder with low sides. We'll talk more on that in a second. But in terms of, being a low androgenic compound for medicine, for bodybuilding, fitness, athletics, or people prone to sides, Masteron is a really, really good compound, both medically and also for performance. Moving on in the pros. Masteron, hardening agent and shrink wrap look. Now, I talk about this with Winstrol. There is nothing, and I'm not telling you guys to use Winstrol. Do everything safely, legally, through your doctor. And Winstrol has some terrible sides and some problems with problems on the heart. Okay, we're going to get into that in a second with Masteron, because Masteron follows Winstrol, although it's not nowhere near as, or it's not as bad in terms of negative sides. But Winstrol, and again, I'm not telling you guys to do any of this. I'm just, again, we're going through all the pros, how they are unbiased, uncensored, but we're going to go through all the cons, all the negatives, unbiased, uncensored. Having said that, Winstrol and Masteron will both, we talked about the mechanism of action already, which it does this, but Winstrol and Masteron, because they both are DHT derivatives, which act as what? Aromatase inhibitors, lowering estrogen levels, binding onto aromatase enzymes, and also blocking receptor sites everywhere, sub-Q, and also in the joint capsule, which gives you dry joints. Well, Masteron and Winstrol are both hardening agents, which will give you a really hard, dense, grainy look. And a better way to put it, it will give you the shrink-wrapped look. Winstrol is known for the shrink-wrapped look, which no other anabolic steroid can give, and that's true. So, hardening agent and shrink-wrapped look, Masteron does both of these. However, Winstrol does it better. Has to be said. All right, moving on to the pros. Good muscle builder. We touched on this a second ago. Have to give credit where credit's due for Masteron. And again, Masteron has been used extensively in females, typically for breast cancer treatment over the last 50 years or so. Not so much anymore, but anyways, has to be said, Masteron is a good muscle builder. It's great at building muscle, almost as powerful milligram as milligram of testosterone. And guys, by the way, this real-world anabolic androgenic rating or ratio lines up exactly what we see with Masteron in the real world. A lot of anabolic steroids don't actually have a completely or fully dead-on anabolic rating. Masteron does fit this bill. It's not like a drug like halotestin where the rating, the theoretical, the scientific rating ratio, and I think anabolic androgenic component differs. No, it's right on in terms of Masteron. So yeah, Masteron is a good muscle builder. No, if and or but around it, has to be said. A lot better than most people think. And again, people don't talk about this, but Masteron is a good muscle builder and could be arguably used for that. Having said that, it's almost as good as testosterone as a muscle builder. But you don't want to use Masteron as a muscle builder. It's better to use testosterone. And we're going to get into that in a second, because Masteron is going to be more likely to cause, that's right, atherosclerosis, which is a hardening of the artery wall, through the anti-aromatase effect and the anti-estrogen effect we talked about. But it's also, more likely to negatively impact cholesterol levels. We'll get into that in a little bit. So much to talk about in these Unleashed videos. No wonder, the Testosterone Unleashed went for almost an hour. Anyways, moving on in the pros. Great safety rating. Guys, it has to be said, again, give credit where credit's due. Masteron, the anabolic steroid, has a really good safety rating. In females, you guys won't even believe what they were giving females. In females, guys, doctors were prescribing females 300, no, not 30. Doctors were prescribing females 300 milligrams of Masteron, pharmaceutical grade Masteron per week. And some people, pretty long term, okay? Depending on what you look at. But either way, we're talking, 300 milligrams, So, 300 milligrams for a male would be significant, in terms of muscle gain and hardening effect. But they were giving these to females. So it has to be said, Masteron has a great safety rating, okay? And obviously this can be argued depending on how long you're doing this. But we're going to get into, again, the cons, some more serious cons in a second. And then we'll talk about also why Masteron was pretty much abandoned in the U.S. for treatment of female breast cancer. Again, there's some effects on the heart we have to talk about. No liver toxicity. We don't see liver toxicity with Masteron. It has to be said. Also in the pros, last pro with Masteron, and I don't hear people talking about this again. I don't know why. Masteron, not only is it a good muscle builder, but you're going to also burn fat with Masteron. Masteron also is a fat burner. It's nowhere near, I want to go on record, it's nowhere near the fat burning effects of a drug like Anavar. Well, no anabolic steroid in the world burns fat like Anavar. We see this in medical studies, but has to be said, it's a DHT derivative, which means it's a hardened metabolism has a hardened metabolism against breakdown in the human body, which means that, good muscle, well, actually pretty low muscle gain, but good in terms of being an injectable DHT, but muscle gain, and also you're going to get some fat loss with Masteron, has to be said. People don't talk about this. And the fat loss effect, you could argue would be greater than testosterone. So has to be said. Guys, we're done with the pros. Masteron unleashed. Now we're moving into, you guys guessed it, the cons. Here we go. Masteron. The biggest con with Masteron, or side effect with Masteron, is the same as every other anabolic steroid in the world. All right? No exception. Plaque buildup in the arteries and heart wall thickening. Okay, let's start with plaque buildup in the arteries. Any anabolic steroid, even your body's natural testosterone, when you jack up dosages, we're talking abuse or misuse. And also, it should be said that even with TRT, if I take injectable testosterone and I put my levels back up to the peak. I just talked to a really good cardiologist. I sat down and I talked with him. Great cardiologist. He told me, and I didn't know how accurate this was before, but again, he has access to even a bigger, well, I guess I can find all the studies too, but he has access, because of his field, to all of this medical research. That's harder for me to find. You're in the system of medical journals, and you have a much bigger pool, so to speak. Easier pool to find. You don't have to pay for a lot of stuff. Anyways, this cardiologist said, Seth, even if you go on TRT, right? Let's say I take 250 milligrams of testosterone myself, go up to the top of the testosterone range. He said, even if you do that, you're going to have a small increase in plaque buildup in the arteries. It's proven scientifically in the medical literature. I'm expounding on what he said, but basically, if you use testosterone, even TRT, you're still going to have a slight increase in plaque buildup in the arteries. I would argue that this is due to what? Simple fact of the matter, if you're taking injectable testosterone, your levels are the same, versus naturally, males have about a 30%, give or take a 30% drop, later in the evening, and that doesn't peak again until morning. So with testosterone, you have this fluctuation. My professional guess would be, since you don't have that with injectable testosterone, it's always at the same level. This is wearing on the heart in terms of plaque buildup a little bit more. I'd love to be able to test that theory and run that past other doctors, but that'll have to wait. That's my theory for now. Guys, moving on. With Masteron, we talked about plaque buildup in the arteries, abuse or misuse. Obviously, depending on how low the dosage is, you're not going to have plaque buildup in the arteries. But heart wall thickening. Again, Masteron misuse or abuse. We're talking about the heart. We're talking about when the heart, not when the left chamber of the heart gets bigger to pump more blood out. That's called an athlete's heart. That happens in every athlete, whether you're enhanced or natural. And as long as you're a hard training athlete, that happens. Does not increase rate of death. However, with anabolic steroid misuse or abuse, Masteron no exception, the heart wall actually thickens. All right, and this does what? Thickened heart wall. Think again, the heart is a muscle. It hypertrophies. That's what's happening. So with a thickened heart wall, and this can happen easily for Masteron too. I mean, look at the anabolic component. It's almost as powerful as testosterone. So with heart wall thickening, what's going to happen? It's going to basically make the heart less efficient, less effective at pumping blood out to the rest of the body, which increases chance of death. Guys, I'm gonna be blunt and forward. I'm gonna talk about my own self and my own my health and stuff later on. Because we're gonna talk about all this stuff. And even doing TRT or high dose TRT, you can have a little bit of heart wall thickening. It's not likely, but it's possible. Especially when you combine that with hard training. We'll get into this stuff in a different video. Let's keep rolling. Masteron Unleashed. High blood pressure, ? Kidney damage, ? Well, guys, it is possible to have high blood pressure with Masteron. But it's extremely unlikely unless you're cranking dosages through the roof, okay? If you're taking 1,000, 2,000 milligrams of Masteron, yes, the androgenic components there, you can have, some high blood pressure, but the thing is that it's literally about a third of testosterone. So it's going to take a lot more Masteron to jack up your blood pressure than it would of testosterone. So high blood pressure, possible, not likely. Kidney damage, well, you're not going to have kidney damage from, high estrogen causing water retention, increasing blood pressure that way. Think edema, water weight. But, can you have kidney damage from the androgen cranking up? Well, it's possible, but again, it's way less likely than testosterone because that androgenic rating is so low. So with high blood pressure and kidney damage, possible, not likely at all unless you are majorly abusing this drug. Shutdown. Masteron, like every other anabolic steroid, like SARMs, don't listen to the people who say SARMs don't shut you down. They absolutely do. And, depending on where you live, if it's legal, you can do SARMs for 2 weeks. Do everything under doctor supervision. But if you do SARMs for 2 weeks, moderate dose, and you get your bloods taken, you will be shut down to almost nothing. I know somebody personally, SARMs, 2 weeks, shut down to, I think, at a 200 testosterone level. So don't listen to these gurus or coaches that tell you SARMs don't shut you down. We'll talk about this in another video. People need to hear this stuff. So Masteron will shut you down like anything else. Low estrogen sides with Masteron. With Masteron, we talked about this. It cannot convert to estrogen under any circumstance. However, with Masteron, you run the risk of low estrogen sides. Why? Masteron not only does not convert to estrogen, but it acts as a what? An aromatase inhibitor. But regardless, it has this AI effect where it acts as an aromatase inhibitor. What does this mean? It means that you're going to get low estrogen side effects depending on, how much testosterone you're running along with Masteron. Do not run Masteron without testosterone. Man, we got so much to talk about. We'll get that, but I'm going to end with that. And also, low estrogen sides, basically, guys, first, because it doesn't convert to estrogen, and second, because it does what? It acts as an AI, an aromatase inhibitor, a light one. And that's why you get the hardening and shrink wrap look. And low estrogen sides in men, guys, are nasty. Low estrogen sides in men, the worst side effects is low estrogen sides can make men suicidal, depressed. It can have a very negative impact on sexual function, things like this. Painful and dry joints, okay, with low estrogen sides. And this is why, guys, again, if you're doing HRT or TRT, I gotta keep shooting more videos because people need to know this stuff. Guys, if you're doing TRT or HRT, if your doctor's prescribing you testosterone and he's also prescribing you an AI, make sure you absolutely don't need that aromatase inhibitor. I was prescribed with my testosterone an AI for a little bit, and it brought my estrogen too low. Most men, listen to me, unless you're overweight, you don't need an AI with your testosterone replacement therapy. You just don't. Okay, as long as you're in that range, it's better to have your estrogen a little higher than a little lower. Why? Because you won't feel like crap. Your HGH levels will be higher because estrogen The conversion of testosterone to estrogen is what gives men your HGH and IGF-1 levels, and also with females. And this is why birth control in females plummets a woman's estrogen and she gets fat. I'll have to do a video on this too. And also plummets her testosterone, but fat loss is more mediated by what? HGH. So if you have low estrogen, either from Masteron, or your doctor's giving you an AI and you don't need it, or he's giving you too much, which is likely with a lot of clinics, you need to lower your dose or get off of, if you can get off of your AI and you're using testosterone, do it, okay? Absolutely, without a doubt. You'll feel 100% better, you look better, and you'll sleep better, because low estrogen sides also include insomnia. But the big thing is that your joints aren't going to be hoarding, and your mood will feel better. HGH levels will be higher, same as IGF, if your estrogen's a little bit higher instead of lower. Oh, I got a lot more videos to do besides all these unleashed videos. You got to keep this stuff coming. Moving on, guys, in the cons, joint pain. We talked about this. Not because it doesn't convert to estrogen, because you could run a TRT dose with Masteron, but because it acts as an aromatase inhibitor, binding onto those aromatase enzymes. What happens? Joint pain, dry joints, or creaky joints, if you want to call it. This isn't because it's damaging your joints. It's because you have aromatase around the joints, which basically do what? Convert testosterone into estrogen, and you need that estrogen to lubricate your joints. Well, what's happening is that Masteron, or Winstrol for that matter, comes around and does what? Stops that process, or inhibits it to some degree, depending on dosage. So what's going to happen? You're basically actually reducing synovial fluid in your joints, and when you say dry joints, it's kind of funny, because yeah, you're actually causing dry joints. You don't. Oh, so you guys, you get. If we're taking if we're taking Masteron under doctor supervision for performance or whatever else, depending on where you live, yeah, guys, you're gonna get a hardening agent. You're gonna get a shrink wrapped look, either with Masteron or Winstrol, and you're gonna look really good. But guess what? You're gonna be doing harm to your joints. You can't have it both ways. The pros also cut into the cons. The best anabolic steroid in the world for both bulking and cutting, and arguably the only one you need for both bulking and cutting, is testosterone. I'm going to do more videos on that. You're not going to look as good as if you were using Masteron or Winstrol, but again, bang per buck and safety, that's really all you need. However, if we're trying to go to the moon and back in terms of, physique, you want to get that extra, 30, 20, 10%, whatever. Obviously, you want to be like the pros. Unfortunately, Winstrol or Masteron is needed. I'm not telling you guys to do that. I'm just telling you guys the truth of the matter in the bodybuilding fitness industry world. Again, moving on. I'm getting derailed a little bit. Mood. We talked about this a little bit. If you have low estrogen sides from Masteron, and this is another reason you can't stop Masteron from acting slightly like an AI. But you can do this. You can run 200 milligrams of testosterone, doctor prescribed, with the Masteron to make sure you're at least these low estrogen sides, and the impact on your mood is not as bad. Has to be said, always run testosterone with Masteron. Do not run it without, okay? And the mood, guys, if the low estrogen sides are bad enough, we're talking, it can make you suicidal or depressed. And then, again, you need to run testosterone along with it. Confirm everything I'm saying with a doctor before you do anything. But at the least on moods, we're talking depression as far as low estrogen sides. One other thing, guys, let's touch on this quick. Heavy metals. If you're getting stuff not through a pharmaceutical source or through a doctor, if you're going and you're getting stuff, if you're getting black market Masteron, it could be real, it could not be real, but the bigger problem is heavy metals, okay? So the problem is that if you're not getting, Masteron or any other anabolic steroid, either if it's legal in your country, you're getting it in a pharmaceutical source, or, through a doctor, what's going to be happening? Plain and simple, guys. there's going to be most likely heavy metals in what you're getting. Why? Because like with veterinarian use, steroids made for animals, veterinarian use. People are like, oh, it's so good, it's good. Well, it doesn't matter how good it is if you're slowly poisoning yourself from heavy metals. So heavy metals isn't something that, you take a shot and you get poisoned. No, it's something that over time you're basically causing toxicity that way, and especially in the brain and neurological. I'm gonna have to do a video on heavy metals, guys, because like the thing is that if you live in the United States, there's a lot of advanced hormone replacement clinics like Prometheus that you can get legal through a doctor. You can be monitored, do things safely, get testosterone, Anavar, Anadrol. I think they have Masteron. I would have to check. But, whatever. A lot of these compounds, and you can do things safely, legally through a doctor, and it's pharmaceutical prescription grade. In a lot of countries, you don't even need a prescription. You can just walk in and grab it. But the bottom line, guys, is that really, you don't have an excuse to, say, okay, I'm going to get, black market garbage, which most of the time, either black market or veterinarian grade, which a lot of the time has heavy metals in. Why? Because they don't care to remove them, those companies that produce that stuff. So I got to talk about this because what do I always say at the end of my videos? Stay safe, stay healthy, and guys, really, this doing what I'm doing and being in, now working for a hormone replacement clinic, being part of this and everything, I've learned a lot. Okay, you can always learn more, and you should always strive to learn more. Moving on. Not trying to give you guys a huge educational rant, but just being honest. This is an important point. Masteron. Should have talked about this earlier for those of you that aren't sticking with me for the whole video. Masteron decreases HGH and IGF-1 levels. Why? HGH and IGF-1 release is not controlled by androgens, testosterone or Masteron or anything else. HGH and IGF-1 release in the male and female body is caused by what? The presence of estrogen, okay? More estrogen equals more HGH and IGF-1 release. And I'm not telling you guys to let your estrogen go through the roof because there's some negative side effects with estrogen. But I'm saying, as long as you're in that estrogen range, it's better to be higher than lower. Why? Because you'll release a lot more HGH than IGF-1. Look this stuff up. Scientists for a long time, they could not figure out, I want to say this again, they could not figure out why Anavar or all these other drugs that don't they don't aromatize into estrogen, why there's no HGH or IGF-1 increase, but there is with testosterone or, EQ or even DECA, with drugs that aromatize into estrogen. Why? Simply put, guys, because it's the conversion from whatever hormone into estrogen that drives up HGH or IGF-1 increases. And if you have low estrogen, what's going to happen? You're going to have lower levels of HGH and IGF-1 because of that. Finishing up with dosage here. Dosing, guys. Check with your doctor before you do anything. Having said that, my professional recommendation to you guys would be this. We know from medical studies that women, we're talking regular weight women, were prescribed 300 milligrams a week, and most of them were fine in terms of, health. Obviously, they had some masculizing effects because of that dosage. Again, the androgen component is low, but it's not zero. The thing is that in terms of males, if you're a female, don't take this drug unless your doctor's giving it to you microdosed. Check with the physicians at Prometheus HRT, before you do anything like this if you're a female, and check with your doctor regardless. But in terms of dosage, we know that women were given 300 milligrams for no problem. So we can safely assume that in males, 100 to 400 milligrams per week of Masteron is safe, at least short term. And you could argue, again, talk to your doctor before you do anything, but you could argue 500 milligrams under doctor supervision would be okay short term as well. Again, going off of just the medical research we have available. So 100 to 400 milligrams or possibly 500 milligrams, under doctor supervision. And always, guys, I'm going to circle this with testosterone. You need a minimum of 150 milligrams if you're going to use Masteron. And honestly, I think you would look better doing, 200 milligrams of testosterone with Masteron than 100 milligrams of testosterone with Masteron. You need a little bit of estrogen, guys, actually to stay full. But, you know, in terms of bodybuilding, but we'll save this stuff for another video. Let's go over to the extra information. Any extra information that you need to know before we let you go? Really, guys, all I have to say is this. Cons that we talked about aside, and again, Masteron is more likely to cause, in terms of heart problems, more likely to cause atherosclerosis. Why? Because of that AI effect, same as Winstrol, which atherosclerosis, hardening of the artery walls, which can contribute to plaque buildup. So, you know, Masteron could cause, arguably, you know, depending on what the cardiologist says, but, you know, my professional opinion, you know, based on the medical research, Masteron is going to cause plaque buildup in your arteries faster than a drug like testosterone, milligram per milligram. Again, why? It's because of this aromatase effect, this effect against estrogen. So faster hardening of the arteries, leading to faster plaque buildup. Having said that, cons aside, in terms of short-term usage, short-term means short-term, guys. We're talking months, not years. As for short-term, amazing compound all around. Yes, I'm here saying Masteron is an amazing compound for all the pros, and also, you know, it has a good safety rating as long as it's not misuse or abuse. Having said that, Winstrol is better. Winstrol is altogether better at doing hardening and the shrink wrap look. You know, just because that anabolic component and the binding capacity of Winstrol is better. Having said that, Masteron, amazing compound, period. Winstrol is better, worse in terms of cons. However, Anavar is better than all of these. Not because, Anavar is going to give you the shrink wrapped look. It's not. You're going to lose a little bit there, but Anavar burns fat like nobody's business, and Anavar is safer, much safer. Talking about the cons, you do not have this you don't have this aromatase inhibitor effect like you do, giving you a harder shrink wrapped look, like Winstrol, but you're going to burn fat like nobody's business with Anavar, which is going to let you get leaner anyways. But, in terms of a muscle builder and a fat burner, there's nothing like Anavar. And again, you can look at Dorian Yates. He used Anavar to the utmost extent, and his conditioning speaks for itself. So guys, bottom line, if you're doing a show and you say, I don't care about my health, I want to get that shrink wrap looking as hard and nasty as possible, Masteron or Winstrol is going to be the choice. Winstrol being the better choice, but also worse sides on the heart. Anavar is going to have none of those problems on the heart in terms of those aromatase inhibitor effects, but you're also not going to get the hardening effects. So again, the sword cuts both ways. Guys, that's all we have to say on Masteron, and we said a lot. This is Masteron Unleashed like you've never heard it before. I'm Seth Spartan. Stay safe, stay healthy. And again, for the 100th time, talk to your doctor before you do anything, because obviously you only have one body. Stay healthy. And we are out of here.